Admiral Rachel Foster stood motionless before the massive viewing window of the ETS Hyperion. Her reflection stared back at her, gray hair neatly tied back, commander's uniform pristine as always. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in focused silence, their fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Show me the Centauri system again," she ordered, her voice steady despite the anger burning in her chest. The main display flickered to life, revealing a scene that made her jaw clench. Massive Confederation ships hovered over the Centaurians' homeworld like vultures. The aliens below had been a peaceful race, their technology barely reaching their own moon, when the Confederation arrived with false promises of advancement and prosperity. "Magnify Sector 7, Rachel commanded. The image zoomed in, showing lines of Centaurians being herded into transport ships. Their four-armed bodies moved sluggishly, clearly drugged to prevent resistance. The Confederation called it assisted uplift, a fancy term for slavery. Lieutenant Mark Wilson, her tactical officer, approached with a datapad. "Admiral, we've confirmed similar operations on all 3 Centauri colony worlds. The Confederation isn't even trying to hide it anymore." Rachel took the pad, though she hardly needed to read it. For 30 years, humanity had watched from the shadows as the Confederation stripped world after world of their resources and people. They'd learned from each observation, building their strength while the Confederation remained ignorant of Earth's true capabilities. "Status of the fleet?" she asked, returning the pad. "All 30 Leviathans report ready, Admiral. The ETS Nemesis and Artemis have completed their final weapon calibrations. We can begin Operation Blackout whenever Earth Command gives the word." Rachel nodded, remembering the day humanity first detected the Confederation's presence. They'd picked up their signals by accident. A junior SETI researcher named Danny Peters had nearly fallen out of his chair when he decoded the first transmission. But instead of announcing themselves, Earth's leaders had made an unprecedented decision: to watch and wait. The viewing window automatically dimmed as a nearby ice fragment caught the distant sun's light. Out here in the Oort cloud, the Hyperion and her sister ships had trained and prepared, hidden among the countless ice bodies. Each vessel was a triumph of human engineering. 15 kilometers of advanced alloys and gravity manipulation technology that the Confederation's sensors couldn't detect. "Message from General Cooper, Admiral," announced Communications Officer Amy Parker. "Luna Command has completed their final review. They're setting the operation timeline." Rachel turned to face her bridge crew. Every face showed the same determination she felt. They'd all seen the records. Dozens of species stripped of their resources, their people, their dignity. The Confederation believed itself untouchable, its communication network linking 10,000 worlds into an empire of exploitation. "Put the general through to my ready room," Rachel ordered, walking toward the small office adjacent to the bridge. The door slid shut behind her with a soft hiss. David Cooper's hologram appeared above her desk, his dark skin looking slightly blue in the projection. "Rachel, it's time. The Council has reviewed the Centauri situation. This crosses the line we drew." "Agreed," Rachel said, sitting down. "How long until we move?" 72 hours. We're calling it Operation Blackout. All 30 ships will strike simultaneously. Take out their FTL communication hubs before they can react. Without faster-than-light communication, their empire will fragment." Rachel allowed herself a small smile. "The bigger they are, the harder they fall," David finished. "This is what we built the Leviathans for. This is why we waited, watched, and learned. Earth Command is transmitting the final coordinates now. Good hunting, Rachel." As the hologram faded, Rachel returned to the bridge. The crew looked up expectantly. "Send word to all ships," she commanded. "Operation Blackout begins in 72 hours. Today we watch. Tomorrow, we show the Confederation that humanity will not stand idle while innocents suffer." She turned back to the viewing window, watching another ice fragment drift past. Soon, these ships would leave their hiding places. Soon, The Confederation would learn that their greatest nightmare had been quietly growing stronger right under their noses. Soon, 10,000 worlds would go dark. And in that darkness, hope would rise for all the species the Confederation had thought they could enslave without consequences. Rachel Foster allowed herself one more small smile. Humanity's patience was about to pay off. General David Cooper stood in Luna Command's main briefing room, his dark uniform a stark contrast against the white walls. Through the reinforced windows, Earth hummed like a blue jewel against the black of space. Around the large circular table sat the Earth Military Council, 12 men and women representing humanity's combined defense forces. Ladies and gentlemen, David began, activating the room's holographic display. Operation Blackout begins in 48 hours. It's time you saw exactly what Project Prometheus has created. The air above the table filled with the image of a massive ship. Even as a hologram, its size was impressive. Several council members leaned forward in their seats. The Steel Leviathan class, David continued, 15 kilometers long, powered by 3 artificial quantum singularities, armed with weapons that break the laws of physics as the Confederation understands them. Admiral Susan Wright raised her hand. How many do we have ready? 30, David replied, watching their eyes widen. Built in secret throughout the Orc cloud over the past 20 years. Each one capable of taking on an entire Confederation battle fleet. He changed the display to show the Confederation's communication network, a web of light spreading across thousands of star systems. Their greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. They rely completely on faster-than-light communications to control their empire. We're going to take that away from them. The hologram zoomed in on one of the network hubs. This is where their arrogance works in our favor. They believe their technology is so advanced that no one could challenge them. Their defense systems are designed to stop energy weapons, plasma attacks, and conventional explosives. Colonel Brian Martinez spoke up. But we don't use any of those, do we? David smiled. No, we don't. Show them, Dr. Evans. Dr. Karen Evans, head of Project Prometheus's weapons division, stood up. Her white lab coat stood out among the uniforms. We use gravity itself as our weapon. The Confederation never pursued gravity manipulation technology because they thought it was impossible. That's why they'll never see this coming. She pressed a button, and the hologram showed a simulation. A steel leviathan appeared near a Confederation hub. A wave of distorted space rippled out from the ship, and everything in its path simply crumpled. One shot, Karen said proudly. That's all it takes. Their shields can't stop it because it warps the space their shield generators occupy. By the time they realize what's happening, it'll be too late. David took over again. We'll hit all their major communication hubs at exactly the same time. No warnings. No demands, no chance for them to adapt. 30 ships, 30 targets, 30 seconds to change the galaxy. And after. This came from General John Baker, his voice serious. After we broadcast one message on all remaining channels, we tell them that humanity is done watching their crimes, done letting them enslave peaceful races, done letting them strip whole worlds bare. The room fell quiet as David let his words sink in. These people had all seen the reports, watched the recordings of Confederation ships enslaving entire populations. They'd spent years preparing for this moment. An aide hurried into the room and handed David a datapad. He read it quickly, his expression grim. News from the Centauri system, he announced. The Confederation has started processing the population. They're separating families, taking children away from their parents. Sound familiar? Angry mutters filled the room. Earth's history held too many similar dark chapters. Now they were watching aliens repeat humanity's worst mistakes. I know some of you questioned whether we had the right to act as Galaxy's police, David said quietly. But I ask you, do we have the right not to act? We have the power to stop this. We have the responsibility to stop this. He looked each council member in the eye. 30 years ago, when we first detected their signals, we could have announced ourselves. could have tried to join their confederation. Instead, we watched, we learned, we built our strength. And now we're going to show them why that was the biggest mistake they never knew they made. The council members stood one by one. There was no need for a vote, no need for further discussion. The time for talking was over. Send word to all ships, David ordered. Operation Blackout is confirmed. In 48 hours, we remind the galaxy that evil triumphs only when good people do nothing. Dismissed. As the council filed out, David looked back at the image of Earth hanging in space. Soon, very soon, humanity would step onto the galactic stage, and their entrance would be one the Confederation would never forget. Lieutenant Emma Wright walked through the curved halls of the ETS Nemesis, her footsteps echoing on the metal floor. Around her, the massive ship hummed with power. The quantum disruption systems she managed took up almost a quarter of the vessel's 15-kilometer length. Right now, those systems were warming up for the biggest test humanity had ever faced. Status report, she called out as she entered the main engineering bay. The room was huge, stretching up several decks. In its center, 3 artificial singularities hung in containment fields, their black surfaces seeming to eat the light around them. Chief Engineer Pete Miller looked up from his console. All 3 power cores are running perfectly, ma'am. Gravity weapons are charged and ready. We could hit our target right now if we had to. Emma nodded, checking the readings herself. The Nemesis had been her home for 5 years now. She knew every sound it made, every vibration in its hull. Today, it felt different. Eager. Ready. Lieutenant Wright to the bridge. Her comm unit crackled. Priority message from command. The bridge of the Nemesis was smaller than most people expected. Captain Alan Rogers believed in keeping his command crew close. As Emma entered, he was standing at the main tactical display with his first officer, Sarah Wilson. Lieutenant, Alan said, "We've just received our final target coordinates. The Confederation's secondary hub at Proxima Centauri. Apparently, they've been using it to coordinate their slave operations in this sector." Emma studied the display. The hub was heavily defended. Energy shields, plasma cannons, automated defense platforms, all useless against what the Nemesis carried. "How many Confederation ships in the area?" she asked. Sarah brought up another display. 3 heavy cruisers, dozen or so smaller vessels. About standard for a major hub. They're not expecting any trouble. Why would they? Alan smiled grimly. As far as they know, there's no one out here capable of threatening them. That changes in 24 hours. The ship's AI, Diana, spoke through the bridge speakers. "Attention all hands. This is the 24-hour alert. All departments begin final preparation sequences. This is not a drill." Throughout the massive ship, over 5,000 crew members moved with purpose. In the medical bay, Dr. Kevin Martinez checked his supplies one last time. In the fighter bays, pilots ran final checks on their gravity drive interceptors. In the mess halls, cooks prepared extra meals for crews working double shifts. Emma returned to engineering, where her teams were running through their checklists. The quantum disruption system was her responsibility. When the time came, it would be her hand on the controls. "Hey, Chief," she called to Pete. "Remember when we first tested this system?" Pete laughed. "You mean when we accidentally turned that asteroid into a pretzel? Good times, but we've come a long way since then." They had. The first gravity weapon tests had been crude, more destroying than controlling. Now they could pinpoint their effects down to the molecular level. The Confederation's communication hub wouldn't be destroyed. It would be perfectly, precisely disabled. Emma's tablet beeped with a priority message. She opened it to find a video from her brother back on Earth. He was a teacher, showing his students the night sky. "Somewhere up there," he was saying, "your sister and a lot of brave people are about to make history. They're going to help make the galaxy a better place." Emma felt her throat tighten. They all had family back home. All had people they were protecting. The Confederation had to be stopped before they found Earth, before they could add humanity to their list of enslaved species. Final systems check, Diana announced. All departments report readiness status. One by one, the reports came in. Weapons ready. Engines ready. Medical ready. Security ready. Engineering. Engineering reports all systems go, Emma said clearly. Quantum disruption system is primed and stable. On the bridge, Captain Rogers received the final report. Send word to command. The ETS Nemesis is ready for Operation Blackout. We await final launch orders. Emma walked to the observation deck, one of her favorite spots on the ship. The vast darkness of space stretched out before her, scattered with distant stars. In less than a day, 30 ships like the Nemesis would emerge from hiding. They would strike simultaneously at the heart of the Confederation's power. And the galaxy would never be the same. Commander Stephen Hall stood on the bridge of the ETS Vanguard, watching the countdown timer tick toward zero. His ship hung in the void of space, hidden behind a small moon. Their target, the Confederation's primary communication hub at Proxima Centauri, floated ahead like a giant metal flower. Its petals were covered in transmission arrays that connected thousands of alien worlds. 5 minutes to Operation Blackout, announced the ship's eye. All hands to battle stations. Red lights flashed throughout the massive ship. Stephen watched his crew move with practiced efficiency. No one spoke except to relay necessary information. Confederation traffic update, reported Communications Officer Jenny Boyd. 3 bulk transport ships just dropped out of FTL. Probably more slaves for their labor camps. Stephen's jaw tightened. Not today. Not ever again. Status of our gravity weapons. Charged and ready, answered Weapons Officer Mike Duncan. Target is locked. We'll hit their main control center first, then the transmission arrays. The timer reached 2 minutes. Stephen opened a ship-wide channel. This is the commander. In 2 minutes, we make history. In 2 minutes, we show the Confederation that their actions have consequences. Every person on this ship knows what's at stake. Let's get it done. 1 minute. Stephen thought about all the training, all the preparation. 30 years of watching, learning, and building had led to this moment. 30 seconds, called the AI. Quantum fold drive spinning up. The deck hummed beneath their feet. The fold drive would jump them instantly to their target, bypassing all the Confederation's early warning systems. 10 seconds. 9. 8. Stephen gripped the arms of his command chair. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Space twisted around the Vanguard. For a split second, Stephen felt like he was being turned inside out. Then they were there, appearing directly above the hub's central control tower. Multiple contacts, shouted Sensors Officer Dan Reynolds. 5 Confederation cruisers, 8 frigates, 12 defense platforms. They're raising shields. Too late, Stephen said calmly. Fire gravity weapons. Execute pattern alpha. The Vanguard's weapon ports opened. There was no beam, no explosion, no dramatic light show. Just a ripple in space that spread out like a wave. When it touched the first Confederation ship, the vessel crumpled like paper. Its shields, designed to stop energy and matter, did nothing against the warping of space itself. First wave successful, Mike reported. Moving to secondary targets. More ripples spread out from the Vanguard. Defense platforms twisted into scrap. The hub's transmission arrays folded in on themselves. Confederation ships tried to fire back, but their plasma bolts curved away harmlessly, caught in the Vanguard's gravity fields. Sir, Jenny called out, getting similar reports from all other strike points. Operation Blackout is working. The hubs are going down. On his tactical display, Stephen watched as points of light began winking out across Confederation space. Each light represented a FTL communication hub. Each darkness represented another piece of the Confederation's control slipping away. Incoming transmission from the hub, Jenny reported. They're begging us to stop, offering to negotiate. No negotiations, Stephen replied. They had their chance. They chose to be tyrants. Send them our prepared message, then complete the operation. The Vanguard's final gravity wave hit the hub's central tower. Metal screamed as it twisted. Power cores shut down. The massive structure went dark. Hub is neutralized, Mike confirmed. No casualties. Just like we planned. Stephen nodded. They had deliberately calibrated their weapons to disable, not destroy. Humanity would not begin its emergence onto the galactic stage with needless death. "Sir," Jenny said, her voice filled with awe. "Reports coming in from all strike teams. Operation Blackout is complete. 29 out of 30 targets neutralized perfectly. The last one had some minor complications but was still successful." Stephen looked at his tactical display. Where once there had been a web of light connecting 10,000 Confederation worlds, now there was darkness. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's iron grip had been broken. "Send word to Admiral Foster," he ordered. "The Vanguard reports mission accomplished. We await further orders." As his crew began damage assessment and perimeter sweeps, Stephen walked to the viewing window. The broken hub hung in space before them, a monument to humanity's first step onto the galactic stage. "Let's see them try to explain this to their slave worlds now," he muttered. The age of the Confederation's unchallenged dominion was over. The age of humanity had begun. Captain Lisa Martinez stood at her post on the bridge of the ETS Artemis, watching history unfold on her tactical screens. The massive display showed the Confederation's FTL communication network, or what was left of it. Where there had once been thousands of connected points of light, now there was mostly darkness. "Status report," she called out, her voice steady despite the excitement she felt. "All primary targets are dark," replied Navigation Officer Ben Foster. "The quantum disruption worked perfectly. Their entire FTL communication network is down." Lisa smiled as she watched the last few lights blink out. The Artemis had been designed specifically to monitor communication patterns. They could see the confusion spreading across Confederation space in real time. "Picking up thousands of distress calls," reported Communications Officer Kelly White. "All on sublight channels. They're trying to figure out what happened. No one seems to know who hit them or how." Through the main viewport, Lisa could see their own handiwork. The regional communication hub they'd disabled hung dead in space, its once bright transmission arrays now twisted into useless shapes. 3 Confederation ships drifted nearby, their systems scrambled by the gravity weapons. "What are they saying?" Lisa asked, genuinely curious about how the mighty Confederation was handling its first real defeat. Kelly adjusted her headset. "Most messages are panic and confusion. The slave worlds are realizing their masters can't communicate with each other. Some are already talking about rebellion. Any word from the Centauri system?" "Yes, Captain." Kelly's face lit up. "The Centaurians are fighting back. Without orders from Central Command, the local Confederation forces don't know how to respond." The bridge crew shared knowing looks. This was exactly what they had planned for. Cut off from each other, the individual pieces of the Confederation's empire would be manageable. Their rigid command structure was becoming their weakness. "Message from Admiral Foster," announced Kelly. "The Hyperion is in position. They're ready to broadcast our announcement to all remaining sublight channels." Lisa nodded. This was the moment they'd practiced for. "Put it on all screens." Admiral Foster's face appeared on every display. She looked calm, powerful, and very human. The message was being transmitted to every Confederation world that still had working communications. "To the Galactic Confederation," Foster began, her voice clear and firm. "You do not know us. We have watched from the shadows as you built your empire of slavery and exploitation. We have seen how you treat peaceful races. We have witnessed your crimes. Today that ends." Lisa watched her crew's faces as they listened. They all knew these words by heart, had practiced this moment in countless simulations. "Your faster-than-light communication network has been neutralized," Foster continued. "Your ability to control 10,000 worlds dies today. To those worlds you enslaved, you are free." To those races you oppressed, help is coming. To the Confederation leadership, this is your only warning. Attempt to reactivate your network, and we will respond with overwhelming force. The message continued, but Lisa's attention was drawn to her tactical display. More and more sublight signals were appearing. Slave worlds were beginning to communicate with each other. Confederation military vessels were trying to maintain order, but without central coordination, they were fighting a losing battle. "Captain," called out Security Chief Ryan Cooper, "we're detecting multiple slave uprisings in nearby systems. The Centaurians have already taken control of 3 Confederation ships." Lisa felt a surge of pride. This was why they had struck the communication network instead of military targets. Let the oppressed peoples fight their own battles, with the playing field finally leveled. "New signal from Earth Command," Kelly reported. "We're to hold position and monitor the sector. Humanitarian aid ships are already on their way to the Centauri systems." Walking to the viewport, Lisa watched as a group of freed slave ships limped past the Artemis. Their crews were probably still trying to understand what had happened, how their mighty oppressors had been humbled in a single day. "Send word to all departments," she ordered. "Well done, everyone. But stay alert. The Confederation won't accept this easily. They'll try to fight back." She smiled slightly. Let them try. Humanity's steel leviathans would be waiting. The galaxy was changing, and they were here to make sure it changed for the better. In the distance, another Confederation relay station hung dark against the stars, another piece of their empire rendered useless by humanity's technology. The day 10,000 worlds went dark was only the beginning. Admiral Rachel Foster stood in the Hyperion's communication center, surrounded by screens showing hundreds of incoming messages from across the galaxy. It had been 48 hours since Operation Blackout. The Confederation's mighty empire was in chaos. "Play the latest transmissions," she ordered. "Let's hear how they're responding." The first message came from a Confederation military commander, his alien features twisted with rage. "This is High Commander Zextal. Any forces receiving this, converge on the Proxima hub. We must restore communications." The second was from a group of freed Centaurians. "To the unknown warriors who helped us, our people are free. The slave camps are empty. The guards ran when they lost contact with their masters." Message after message poured in. Some were angry threats from Confederation officials. Others were celebrations from liberated worlds. Many were simply confused, asking what had happened to their galaxy. "Time for Phase 2, Rachel said. "Begin broadcasting on all frequencies." Her communications officer, Amy Parker, nodded and pressed several controls. "You're live, Admiral. Every working receiver in range will hear this." Rachel took a deep breath and began speaking. Her words would be translated into every known language in the galaxy. "People of the galaxy, I am Admiral Rachel Foster of Earth's Defense Force. 2 days ago, we disabled the Confederation's control over you. Now, we offer you a choice." She paused, letting her words sink in. On the screens around her, she could see her message reaching more and more worlds. "To those who were enslaved, Earth stands ready to help you rebuild. We offer food, medicine, and protection while you regain your independence. Our ships will defend you from any Confederation attempts at retaliation." Reports were already coming in of Confederation warships trying to maintain control of slave worlds. But without faster-than-light communications, they couldn't coordinate their efforts. Each ship was alone, facing entire populations of angry former slaves. To the Confederation military, Rachel continued, her voice hardening. "Your empire is finished. We've watched you for 30 years. We know your tactics, your technology, your weaknesses. Test us, and you will fail. Several of your commanders have already tried. Their ships now drift powerless through space." On a nearby screen, she could see the wreckage of 3 Confederation cruisers. They had attempted to attack the Hyperion an hour ago. The battle had lasted less than 5 minutes. "To those Confederation worlds who wish for peace, abandon your slave-holding ways. Accept your neighbors as equals. Help us build a better galaxy. We will welcome you as friends. Lieutenant Wilson approached with a datapad. Admiral, we're getting responses. 17 Confederation worlds are already offering to surrender. They're asking for terms. Rachel nodded. They had expected this. Some Confederation worlds had never fully supported the Empire's cruelty. Now they had an excuse to break away. And finally, she said into the transmitter, to the Confederation leadership hiding in your protected enclaves, you have a choice. Step down peacefully and face justice for your crimes, or lose everything trying to defend your corrupt empire. There will be no third option. She signaled Amy to end the transmission. Around her, the screens continued showing the chaos spreading through the galaxy. But it was controlled chaos, planned chaos. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment. Message from Earth Command, Amy reported. The first humanitarian ships are leaving Sol system now. Medical supplies, food, construction materials. Everything the freed worlds will need. Rachel smiled. This was the true purpose of Operation Blackout. Not just to break the Confederation's power, but to help build something better in its place. Admiral, Lieutenant Wilson called out. Large Confederation fleet gathering in Sector 7. Looks like they're trying to coordinate using light-speed signals. How many ships? Rachel asked calmly. 37 warships. They're on an intercept course. Rachel nodded to her bridge crew. Well then, let's show them why that's a bad idea. Prepare gravity weapons. It's time to remind them that our first demonstration was gentle compared to what we can really do. The Hyperion's engines hummed to life. Around the galaxy, other steel leviathans were moving into position, protecting freed worlds, stopping Confederation reprisals. A new age was beginning, and humanity would make sure it began right. Colonel Robert Chen watched from the bridge of the ETS Prometheus as another supply ship landed on the Centauri homeworld. 2 weeks had passed since Operation Blackout, and the galaxy was changing faster than anyone had expected. Status report on the aid distribution. He called out to his logistics officer, Mary Wilson. Better than planned, sir, Mary replied, checking her screens. The Centaurians have organized themselves quickly. They're already helping distribute supplies to their outer colonies. Through the viewport, Robert could see the surface of the Centauri world, where slave camps had once stood. Temporary hospitals and housing now rose. Earth's humanitarian fleet had arrived just 3 days after the communication blackout, bringing hope with them. Message from the Centaurian Council, reported Communications Officer Jack Turner. They're inviting you to their first free assembly in 50 years. Robert smiled. He'd been working with the Centaurians since the moment Operation Blackout ended. Their determination to rebuild had impressed him deeply. Tell them I'd be honored, he replied. Any update on the Confederation forces in this sector? The last holdouts surrendered this morning. Security Chief Linda Morris answered. Without orders from their high command, most of them chose to stand down rather than fight. The tactical display showed the current state of the galaxy. The Confederation's empire was splitting apart exactly as planned. Some worlds had surrendered immediately. Others had tried to fight back, only to discover how outmatched they were by humanity's technology. Sir, Jack called out suddenly. Priority message from Admiral Foster. The Confederation's High Council is requesting a meeting. They're offering unconditional surrender. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. This was what they had hoped for, but hadn't dared expect so soon. The mighty Confederation, broken in just 2 weeks. Put the Admiral's response on screen, Robert ordered. Admiral Foster's face appeared on the main display. She looked tired but satisfied. To all Earth forces, the war is over before it truly began. The Confederation has surrendered. All ships maintain current positions and continue humanitarian operations. Let's show the galaxy that humanity knows how to build peace as well as we wage war. Robert turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral. Let's get back to work. These people have waited 50 years for their freedom. Let's help them make the most of it. The day continued with a steady stream of supply ships landing and taking off. Robert attended the Centaurian assembly, watching with pride as the former slaves took their first steps as a free people again. Late in the day, he received another message from Earth Command. A new alliance was forming. Already, 20 former Confederation worlds had asked to join, along with 15 liberated species. They wanted Earth to lead them, to help build a galaxy based on freedom and cooperation instead of slavery and fear. "Colonel," Mary called out, "you might want to see this." The main screen showed a view of space above the Centauri world. Dozens of ships hung in orbit, but they weren't Earth vessels or Confederation warships. They were ships from other freed worlds, coming to help their fellow survivors of Confederation rule. "Sir," Linda added, "similar reports are coming in from across the galaxy. Former slave species are helping each other rebuild. They're sharing resources, technology, medicine, everything they can." Robert walked to the viewport, watching another Earth supply ship land. He thought about how quickly everything had changed. Just 2 weeks ago, the Confederation had seemed invincible. Their empire had spanned 10,000 worlds. Their word had been law. Then humanity had shown them the error of their ways, not with brute force or wholesale destruction, but with precisely targeted strikes and immediate humanitarian aid. They had broken the Confederation's power and immediately started helping people rebuild. "Message from the Centaurian Council," Jack announced. "They're asking permission to name their new central hospital after Earth." "Tell them yes," Robert replied, "and tell them we're honored." As night fell on the Centauri world, Robert looked up at the stars. The galaxy was entering a new age. The Confederation's empire of slavery was gone. In its place, something better was growing. Something built on cooperation, freedom, and mutual respect. And humanity would be there to help it grow, one world at a time.